My toxic ex's older brother tried to kiss me and get into my good graces, but I rejected him. Now my ex is calling me hateful slurs, claiming I seduced his older brother and ruined his family because his brother hates him now. Posted by you/big explanation 3582. I honestly don't know how to get around it. It's been a couple of weeks, and I'm genuinely confused as to what I did and if there were things I should/could have done differently. I, 27F, was in a rather bad relationship about 4 to 5 years back. It was a textbook toxic relationship, and there are very few things in life that I regret as much as I regret staying in it for a year and a half, which was a year and a half too much. Just to give some context, this person, let's call him Chad, was a year older than me. We met in college, became friends, and eventually grew closer after we both graduated. Anyway, the initial courtship period was a dream, which I now realize was severe love bombing. It's like he worshipped the ground I walked on. He showered me with compliments, small thoughtful gifts, handwritten letters, the works. I was smitten. However, one point of contention since day one was his insecurity, how he didn't believe he got someone like me, or how people apparently looked at us weirdly because they couldn't believe he landed me. 5 months into the relationship, things took a permanent turn for the worse. His insecurity was through the roof. I wasn't allowed to have any guy friends, and there was constant negging regarding my body, clothes, taste in music, the way I spoke, everything. Also, I realized he had an alcohol problem and constantly micro-cheated, engaging with his exes over late-night video calls, flirting with anyone and everyone under the pretext of friendship. He was my first, so I was extremely attached and couldn't leave until he finally cheated on me with someone he apparently saw as a little sister and grew up with. I can't believe I lost my self-esteem and peace over a guy built like a wet cigarette, but I digress. Now coming to his older brother, let's call him Dan. Dan had always been polite with me, acknowledging me with at most a nod, a smile, or a hello. However, Chad was really uncomfortable with these interactions because, A. Dan was very private and had never spoken to any of his other girlfriends, and B. Dan had told him on a few occasions that I was too good for him and he shouldn't screw up. Okay, now coming to the main issue of how I apparently seduced Dan. 7 months ago, I moved to a different city for work. I live alone in a 2-bedroom, and my house is the go-to hangout spot for the few friends I've made here. Not like a party spot, but more of a glass of wine, good food, safe space kind of place. I love cooking and hosting people, and my friends definitely reap the benefits. I'm the mom friend. Anyway, about 4 months back, one of my friends was supposed to come over, and she asked to bring a friend who'd recently gone through a breakup. I didn't mind. When they showed up, I realized that this friend was Dan. We were both surprised and visibly uncomfortable. A few moments after settling down, he randomly blurted out that he knows his brother did me dirty and that he'd understand if I wanted him to leave. This statement actually helped cut the tension in the room, and I was okay with him being over. After all, he had always been nice to me, and I had a really good relationship with my ex's family, so I didn't ask him to leave. The 3 of us got drunk, consoled Dan, and talked the night away. This started becoming a frequent affair, not the drinking, though, with them coming over at least 2 to 3 times a week. At times, Dan would stay even after the other friend left, usually for dinner because he missed home-cooked food. I didn't mind. Now, the friend who'd come over with him went out of town last month, and this is when I think I should have acted differently. Dan started showing up alone for these weekly dinners. He'd come way early and try to help me cook and stay really late, usually not even getting up to leave until I dropped several hints. On the last of these occasions, he showed up with my favorite wine and food as a sort of thank you for being such a good friend despite everything. We ate, we drank, we talked and drank some more, and it was pretty late when Dan told me he had driven to my place that day. He usually took cabs, and that he was too drunk to drive back, so he asked if he could crash at mine. I hesitantly agreed, given I had a spare room and also there wasn't any other reasonable option, to be honest. This is when things started getting worse, I think. He started talking about what he thought of me when he first met me and presented rather detailed observations about me from the time I dated his brother, and loads of other stuff, some compliments, some vulnerable statements, some very awkward jokes, etc. After a little while, he tried to kiss me. Not like leaning in to kiss me, but more like it suddenly occurred to him he should do it, so he just grabbed my face and tried to kiss me. I pushed him away and went numb for a minute and then slowly went to my room and locked my door. I couldn't think and felt extremely hollow. I laid in bed awake for the rest of the night. The next morning, he was gone before I woke up. 3 days after the incident, I got a call from an unknown number and picked up to realize it was my ex. He was wailing hysterically and screaming over the phone, calling me a WHRE for seducing his brother and saying that I ruined his family and his relationship with his brother, and that I did a hideous thing for revenge, which is way worse than what he did to me. There was a lot of name-calling and accusations. His brother isn't talking to him, and his dad refused to get involved. So he feels completely abandoned. I didn't say a word and hung up, shaking. Turns out Dan had left that very night and called Chad, cussing him out for ruining his chances with me, telling him he always had a thing for me and knew Chad didn't deserve me. So, am I the one at fault here? Top/relevant comments. Commenter. You're not the jerk. He was pursuing you with the intent to date or hook up, that's why he brought the wine and drove. It was an excuse to stay. I think he pursued you, taking advantage of the situation and your sympathy. I suggest avoiding this entire family, they don't seem to make the best choices or handle relationships/friendships well. Ops response. The car thing was definitely a sign. To be honest, I feel kind of stupid for not gauging this earlier. Commenter 2. So let me get this straight. One brother verbally and mentally abused you, the other brother SA'd you, then the first brother called and verbally abused you some more, and you want to know if you're the jerk? Really? Block these two douchebags. They don't deserve another second of your thoughts. Ops response. The ex has been blocked for eons. The other one is blocked now. I'm really not letting anyone from that family have any access to me moving forward. Update 3 weeks later. Firstly, apologies for taking so long to post an update. I honestly had no intention of posting one, but then things kept unfolding daily, and here we are, close to a month later. Secondly, thank you to everyone who has been super supportive and understanding, your words really helped me. This past month has been nothing short of a fever dream. Ever since the night of the incident and the phone call from the ex, things had been fairly normal. I blocked the entire family and, as mentioned earlier, decided to meet the common friend to tell her the entire scenario. We met, and I narrated everything that went down during the couple of weeks when she wasn't here. Here's what she had to say. Apparently, Dan had spoken to her about me, asking if she sensed a spark between us and going as far as telling her that he always felt I had a thing for him when I dated his brother. I was dumbfounded, to say the least. Anyway, she apparently asked him not to imagine stuff and to be normal and process his breakup. Not gonna lie, I was kinda pissed at her for not telling me and also being rather lackadaisical about the whole situation, even after I told her what went down. She just asked me to get over it and not engage. Literally, just that much. I have decided to keep my distance for now. Now, from mid-April is when things really started snowballing. So, I live in a rented condo in a gated apartment building. While I don't have the authority to install cameras or change the locks, I did add an extra lock and informed building security not to let Dan in anymore, or, if anyone comes to visit me, to give me a call before letting them up. I thought that'd be it, but gosh, was I wrong. At around 2 a.m. on the 12th of this month, I woke up to my phone buzzing incessantly, bombarded with calls and messages. There were over 100 calls from an unknown number and some 5 to 6 calls from building security. I called them back and could clearly hear a ruckus in the background. They asked me to come down immediately. Once downstairs, what do I see? Dan is drunk out of his mind, screaming and hurling expletives, asking to be let up. I was terrified and stumped, to be honest. Once Dan noticed me, he literally lunged toward me, repeatedly saying he wanted to talk. By this time, more people had gathered, additional security was called, and they tried to drag Dan away when he punched one of the guards. He was then literally thrown outside. I apologized to everyone, especially the guard, and offered to pay for his injury, just trying to defuse the situation, in some sort of daze. It wasn't until I got into the elevator that I broke down. It was a mix of anger, fear, and helplessness, and I was genuinely scared because Dan is a big guy, and if I were to face him alone, I wouldn't be able to fight him off physically. But as they say, bad luck comes in threes, and there was more. The next morning, I got a call from my landlord asking me to leave my apartment within the next 2 weeks. I was devastated. This was my space, a home I'd made for myself, and now I was being kicked out through no fault of my own. I explained the situation, and while he sympathized, he said the actual residents of the building didn't want someone who attracts violence and drama and has questionable character. After an extremely crappy night and morning, I managed to drag myself to work somehow and pushed through the day. I just wanted to get home, stay in bed, and cry. So, I chose to leave early and go home. You know how you can sense if someone's following you or watching you? I felt that while walking from my office to the subway, and just as I was about to enter the station, someone grabbed my hand and pulled me aside. It's Dan, and I kind of froze. He again kept muttering that he wanted to talk. He was very clearly on something and looked kind of manic. His grip was extremely tight, and he was going on about how his family isn't talking to him and I'm the only person he can count on. At this point, a few things were running through my mind. This particular entry gate is a deserted one, it's the closest to my office, but it's the least used gate, surrounded by trees and kind of nothing. It's late afternoon, and the very few shops around this gate were closed because of siesta/summer nap time. I just needed to somehow escape and then head straight to the cops. Dan noticed me zoning out and made some innuendo-laden comment and touched my face. I think something snapped in me then. I screamed bloody murder. I screamed and stomped on his foot and ran down the stairs to the subway station and got onto the train that had just arrived. It went in the opposite direction of my home, but I didn't care. I called a couple of friends who knew about the situation and asked them to accompany me to the police station. The police station was unhelpful. I narrated the incident, showed the bruise on my wrist, and told them everything. Things they chose to hear and see: ex's brother, a woman, let him into my home multiple times, alcohol involved, he didn't technically hurt me, I live alone, I have tattoos, this guy was my friend. So, I should probably try and amicably sort things out. Since there was no bloodshed or harassment that led to anything, they wouldn't lodge an official complaint or arrest him, but they could make a general complaint and look into it if things escalated. I was literally holding in my tears at this point. I called Dan's father, told him about his son, told him I'd lodged a complaint against his son. This man dodged all responsibility, told me we're all adults and are allowed to do what feels right. I swear I could shoot this family. So, I've lost my home, this man is lurking around harassing me and making my workplace unsafe too, the cops aren't doing crap, his family isn't doing crap, and I don't want to bother mine. All I have is the copy of a general complaint. I felt helpless, but I had to do something. I looked up Dan's manager, who I knew hated him, HR and department head at his workplace, and sent them a scathing email, attaching the copy of the complaint. A few of my close friends started commenting on the company's LinkedIn posts, and took to Google reviews about the company hiring predators. A couple of my guy friends shared the same information with his landlord, who happens to have a daughter. And lastly, I told the super gossipy, scheming aunt and their family, connected on Facebook, what happened, with some added spice. The fact that his holier-than-thou dad is now the crux of family gossip over his son's activities is definitely not doing him any good. Last I know, Dan has been fired and asked to leave his apartment. Dan is terrible with money and has very questionable work ethic, and as a result of everything, has been forced to leave the city and go back home. I have changed my personal phone number, gotten a new place, and will move soon. Top/relevant comments. Additional info from OP. Addressing a couple of recurring queries and comments. 1. The apartment issue. Here, in this country, landlords hold all the power. All rental contracts have a clause where either party can leave the premises with a notice of a mutually decided period of time, which is 2 weeks in my case. Could I have taken a legal route? Maybe, but the process would be extremely tedious, expensive, and long drawn, with a high probability that I'd be harassed even more by the authorities. As for the financial brunt of it, fortunately, my work pays for my accommodation and they helped me out. I have informed people there of the situation, and fortunately, they were extremely helpful. Our company's HR head has shared Dan's profile across her network/connections across the city, asking them not to hire him. She's been in the industry for a very long time and is extremely revered. She's been like a fairy godmother in all of this. 2. The behavior of the police that I mentioned is extremely common in my country, and unfortunately, there aren't enough accessible groups, authorities, or nonprofits that take a stand against the police. There are loads of political loopholes, and you don't want to have a target on your back. Sexism and misogyny are extremely deep-rooted, the kind of people who'll accuse a woman of staying out late or taking a deserted way home if they happen to be harassed or assaulted. Commenter. Why the hell did the building security ask you to come down when there's another screaming and shouting? Ops response. I'm not a resident, I'm a tenant. So I don't directly contribute to their salary. So who the hell cares? Commenter 2. Ops history shows she lives in India. As an Indian girl who moved to a new city for work, lived alone as a tenant, and had an abusive boyfriend at one point, I can vouch that the scenario she explained in the post is completely plausible. You have no idea how ridiculous things can get, and how quickly, over here. The security just wants the problem to go away from their heads. They don't care if she gets beaten up or killed, as long as they don't have to deal with someone screaming over their heads.